What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at the WORKPRO 4-inch water pump pliers. Seen a lot of comparisons online to these already to the Knipex Cobra extra small water pliers, and for good reason. They both have very similar capabilities and are even very similar in sizing. Now that's not to say that the WORKPRO is a direct clone of the Knipex. In fact, there's several differences that we'll be talking about throughout the video. But at $12.99, they're nearly a third of the price of the Knipex with similar capabilities, which has a lot of people wondering, are they the Knipex killers? And the answer to that, like most things, requires a bit of nuance. If you were to ask me to answer definitively right now, yes or no, the answer would be no, but there's definitely an asterisk there, so we'll get into that later in the video as well. I'll leave a link to where you can find both of these down in the description of the video. I picked both up on Amazon. The WORKPROs are currently sold out. They just released pretty recently, and a lot of people have wanted to get their hands on them so they can see for themselves. And so they've been pretty popular for WORKPRO. I would imagine that they're doing everything they can to get these back in stock as quickly as possible. What I would recommend is going to that link and then just adding it to your wish list, checking back every couple of days until they do a restock. And so we'll start with the sizing on these. Although these are listed as 4-inch water pump pliers and the Cobra XS extra small water pliers are also listed at 4 inches, if we line the base of these up, you'll see that the jaws on the WORKPRO sit just a little bit higher, and that's because these are about 4¼ inches long versus the 4 inches even on the Knipex. Now, one of the major differences, probably the first thing that you noticed on these, is how those jaws are able to be adjusted. And so on the WORKPROs, there's this button actuated action, and those slide down into 15 different positions. As soon as you let go, it locks into place. I find that to be a little bit more precise than the adjustment on the Knipex, and it does offer more positions as well. Our Knipex, you open the action, slide it down, up, as wherever you want. It's very fast, easy, and intuitive, but only offers 11 positions, and I feel like it's a little bit less precise to quickly get exactly where you want on that slide. But I still prefer the Knipex. Like I said, it's fast, easy, and intuitive. It just works better for me and more natural. I don't have to find that button and push it. And sometimes when I'm pushing that button, my index finger is on the other side pushing back, and so I have to make sure that's out of the way. And it just feels more intuitive with the Knipex. Now, another reason I prefer the Knipex slightly is something that I'm kind of projecting here. I haven't had this experience myself, and I haven't seen anyone online have this experience, but I would imagine that button is much more likely to be a failure point than the action on the Knipex. And so we haven't seen any long-term use of these because they're so new. We haven't seen any hard torture tests on them because they're so new. But it really wouldn't surprise me if some of those failed. I don't think they're going to fail in large numbers, but it would actually surprise me more if we don't see any of those fail. And so it just seems like an additional failure point that we don't have on the Knipex. And so in terms of long-term reliability, I think the Knipex is going to win out in that regard. Now, in terms of the fit and finish, it's clearly a lot better on the Knipex right out of the box. The WORKPRO is a little bit rough around the edges. This one has the black phosphate finish. There is one without that if you prefer that kind of more silver look, so you have a little bit more to choose from in that regard. But the fit and finish clearly isn't at the same level. The edges just aren't as precise. You can see a little bit of that here with some of that portion not coated with the black phosphate finish on it, and then just all around it just doesn't look quite as crisp and clean. We have the laser for the logo versus every marking on the Knipex being stamped with raised lettering, and so just looks a little bit more premium and feels a little bit more premium in hand as well. Now, the WORKPRO does have this hanging hole, which is a nice addition we don't get on the Knipex. This is so you can quickly just hang it from your pegboard at your workbench or hang it from a small nail, and that's a really nice feature. You can obviously just do the same thing with the Knipex, just put the pegs right through here and it'll hold it in place, but nice to have that dedicated hanging hole there. And I think in the EDC realm, where these are actually really popular, we're going to see a lot of people using that for customization. We'll see people putting lanyards on there, maybe even some beads, so you have that extra grippiness. You can rip it out of your pocket quickly, use it as a kind of pull cord, rip it out of your pouch really quickly, and so that is a really nice added feature to the WORKPRO that we don't get on the Knipex. I certainly wouldn't mind seeing them implement something like that in the future, but I think this is a tried and true design, very popular. I can't imagine that they're going to be making any changes to this to kind of match the level of competition. And so one of the major areas where we're going to see a bigger difference, so all the other stuff has been pretty subtle, some of it even preference based, but one of the areas we're going to see a big difference is in those jaws. And so let's get them both opened up completely, and you can see they both open to about 1 inch, so there's really no favor in that regard. It's pretty much similar. But when we take a look at the teeth they look pretty similar as well. Hopefully that's focusing up okay, but they look pretty similar as well. I do find that the Knipex feel a little bit more grippy just with my fingers, not noticing really a noticeable difference overall. They're very comparable in that regard, but something that you're not seeing is the heat treat on these. And that's actually something really important with tools like this. And so WORKPRO heat treats these to a 48 to 50 HRC, whereas Knipex is heat treating them to 60 HRC. They just list it as 60. I would imagine there's some variance, whether that's 58 to 60 or 59 to 61. There's usually a small level of variance there, but 10 points of HRC is actually a pretty significant difference, especially on tools like this that have very fine, small teeth on them. And so what's gonna happen with that softer steel is the more and more you use them, the more those teeth are gonna get worn down and kind of a rounded edge, and maybe even to the point with where they're flat. And then they're gonna start slipping off of whatever you're trying to tighten or loosen. If it's on there real tight, they're gonna start slipping and maybe even stripping and kind of rounding off the corners on your bolts or nuts, whatever you're loosening there. And so they're going to lose that reliability and rely completely on how hard you can squeeze these handles. And so that's not going to be hard enough when you're really having to torque down on something. It's going to start slipping on you. And so I'm sure that's going to be something that we'll see with long-term use of these. And so depending on your use case, like if you're using these on the daily for work, definitely go with the Knipex because you have that long-term track record of reliability. With these ones, we don't know for sure, but I'm fairly confident that they're just going to wear down significantly faster than the Knipex if you're heavy using these on a day-to-day basis. One other thing I haven't mentioned yet is that they weigh a little bit more. The WORKPROs are 2.15 ounces. The Knipex are 1.94 ounces. Really a pretty negligible difference overall, so not the end of the world there. The other thing that I'd be worried about with that heat treat is other points of failure. You can see your jaws snap or even the handle snap and rendering them unusable. And one thing that it's kind of hard to talk about because I haven't used the warranty on either of these, but I have seen people online saying that WORKPRO is nearly impossible to get a hold of for any warranty stuff. So if you do need that replacement, you may or may not be able to get a hold of them. Now, fortunately, these are on Amazon, so you may be able to get them to just ship you out a replacement. But in terms of just being able to contact them, I think that's a point in Knipex's favor as well. Now, overall, I think these are pretty solid. I think there's kind of a difference of who should go for each. So for the Knipex, I think if you're using them for work, if you're a craftsman, tradesman of any sort, you're using them for heavy use on a day-to-day basis, or you're just kind of crafty at home and heavy using them, definitely go with the Knipex. Like I said, they have that history, that long-term history of reliability, and you know that. They have the German engineering and craftsmanship. They just look a little bit better, so I think they're also good for that buy once, cry once crowd that just wants the best tool for the job that's available and don't ever have to worry about replacing it. And so a lot of points in the Knipex flavor. So that being said, who are the WORKPROs for? I would argue that, ironically enough, for someone like me, and so I know I'm saying you should buy the Knipex if you have any intentions of heavy using them, but I think for the EDC world in general, the Knipex got popular and I definitely bought into the hype. I carry them anytime I carry a Leatherman, so I have two pairs of pliers because sometimes you need one for the bolt and for the nut, or for the pipe and for the connector, whatever the case may be. There's a lot of cases where you need two of them. And so the amount that I actually use them though isn't that much. So I find myself reaching for my knife, my flashlight, my multi-tool, my hank, even my pry bar more often than my Knipex. And so I'm really not heavy using them. Yes, I prefer the reliability now that I have both of them, but if I were to only buy one, I could probably get by with the WORKPRO for a very long time. Even if I had to replace it after 2 or 3 years, the time when I buy the second one, I'm still coming in cheaper than a single pair of Knipex. And so for me, that's probably a win. And I would imagine for a lot of people that are just kind of EDCing these, not heavy using them, that's going to be the case. So there's definitely a case to buy the WORKPROs over the Knipex, but I do think the Knipex are far and away the better tool of the two and are going to offer a more long-term reliability of the two. I would love to hear your thoughts on this though down in the comments below. As usual, if you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, checking out some other content. It all helps the channel out a ton, and I hope you have a great one. Take care.